Hey guys, welcome back to After Hours. This week, I have an absolute treat for you. With it being the last episode of season 3, can't believe we're on episode 75 or 25 of this season. It's unbelievable how quickly time just flies by. So, yeah, as I said, an absolute treat for you. William Porter is on the podcast, and if you've been listening for a while, or if you're in any of the sober communities online, you'll know the name and you'll know that William's a bit of a hero of mine. William wrote Alcohol Explained, which I genuinely think is one of the most important books ever written about drinking. I've recommended it to more people than I can count. It does exactly what it says on the tin. It explains alcohol, the science, the psychology, the neural pathways, why the hair of the dog works, and why that's exactly the problem. All of it in plain English. But we're not just talking about the book today. We're talking about William's story, and it's a good one. From a park in Range Park with a bottle from the offie at 14 to Cardiff University to the Territorial Army Parachute Regiment to being deployed to Iraq to 5 days of constant drinking in February 2014 and the moment he said, enough is enough. That was 12 years ago and he hasn't had a drink since. This is a brilliant, fascinating conversation, and I think it's going to hit home for a lot of people, particularly the grey area drinkers who are listening and thinking, well, I'm not that bad. You might want to stick around for this one. As always, listen for the similarities, not the differences, and I'll see you at the end. Here's William. William, welcome to After Hours, man. How are you today?
I'm good, thank you. Nice to be here.
Yeah, it's we've been kind of trying to plan this for a little while, but I was saying off air that I read Alcohol Explained, which we'll talk about later, but it's just an absolute Bible for me, and it's one that I point people to if they are struggling or if they're having not necessarily rock bottom or whatever, but the grey zone, the grey area drinkers and all that. I definitely point them towards that because it does what it says on the tin. It's Alcohol Explained, So we'll talk about that a bit later. But tell us, give us a bit of background. Where did you grow up? What was your childhood like?
So I grew up in southwest London, a little place called Rains Park, which is just near Wimbledon. So it was
Nice.
an absolutely fine childhood.
Mhm.
Nothing usual sort of ups and downs and scrapes and stuff, but nothing like serious.
Yeah.
And grew up, and then I think I was about 14 when I tried a cigarette. In that same year, I tried drinking.
Yeah.
And it started off with me drinking and smoking. I actually managed to quit drinking. It was kind of on and off, but say 4 or 5 years later. But
Mhm.
obviously, I carried on drinking.
What, you
So,
quit smoking? Sorry, or you quit?
sorry. Oh, yeah, I
Yeah, yeah.
quit smoking. Yeah,
Which
yeah,
came
yeah. Sorry.
which came first for you, the smoking or the drinking, or were they just kind of hand in hand? The reason I ask is because, like, me and my friends, my cronies,
Mm.
we were dead against smoking. Like, there was people around the back of the school and they were smoking, and this was around 14. And as soon as we got the taste for the alcohol, like going out the weekends, we were like, oh, let's try smoking. And as soon as that was it was like hand in hand. Do you know what I mean? They go like,
Yeah.
together.
I can't remember. As I said, I think it was the same year I tried both, and I can't remember which came first. I suspect it might have been smoking,
Mm,
simply because it's an easier, and again, like in those days, it's kind of different with this generation, but we went out to get drunk. We didn't
yeah,
just have one or two. So
yeah.
when you were drinking, it had to be planned a bit better than just being out with your friends and having like a cigarette or something. So I suspect it would have probably been the drinking that came second, but they do go hand in hand, don't they? The pair of
Yeah.
them completely.
Well, it's funny, yeah, because I suppose like smoking isn't really a mind altering substance, so you can go around the back of the school playground or whatever and have a couple of fags, and you're going back into class, you're fine, or whatever. You go back to your
Mm.
parents' house, you've had a couple of cigarettes. Okay, you stink, but you're not.
Yeah.
But what is it? So I think, and you'll tell me about the science wrong, but I think somebody said one time, so smoking thickens your arteries, whereas the alcohol loosens it. Like I think alcohol thins your blood in your arteries, whereas where smoking kind of. So I don't know whether there's that kind of equilibrium between the two that they kind of balance each other out.
I'm not sure it's that so much. I think they both ultimately harden your arteries because they both put blood
Right.
pressure up.
Sure,
When
sure.
your blood pressure goes up over time, your arteries get harder to withstand the extra pressure, and obviously that's not a good thing, because
Yeah.
your cardiac system, your heart pumps,
Hmm.
flows through a valve, and the arteries are designed to expand a bit, and then the valve shuts, and it's the closing then of the arteries going back to their natural shape that pushes the blood around the system. So it's not just the heart, it's the arteries also assisting the flow. And
Yeah.
obviously, if they're rock hard, you just got the heart beating really hard against something
Yeah.
that's not
Yeah.
good. I suspect it's more to do with the fact that one's a stimulant and one's a sedative. So they
Sure.
kind of balance each other out that
Yeah.
way in terms of how you actually feel when you're drinking slash smoking.
Yeah. And let's be honest, when we're like 14, 15, 16, we think we're cool as, do you know what I mean? Smoking,
Yeah.
drinking, and that's it. So how did that first couple of times drinking, the first couple of sessions, how was that? How did that feel for you, like emotionally? And
It it was an interesting one because it was a bit of a non-event. I remember I got a friend of mine had an older brother and told us where we could get some booze from. So we
Mhm.
went to this off license and bought some, and sat on a bench and drank it. And honestly, it felt odd, but
Mhm.
I wouldn't say either good or bad. It was just a sort of a strange experience, which is kind of interesting because what people generally say is their first experience of alcohol is either that, it's kind of like a non event,
Mhm.
or it's this massive epiphany and it really hits you, and oh my God, it was such a wonderful um, thing and such a wonderful feeling, and I finally felt free, etc., etc. But I
Mhm.
think that's as much to do with the situation you're in as anything else.
Yeah.
So alcohol is a sedative. So if you're feeling nervous or on edge, it will take the edge off that. So for me, I was sat with a friend of mine, a little park we'd found near Rains Park, just sitting there having a drink, so completely relaxed anyway. But I suspect if I'd been at a party
Yeah.
with girls there and feeling really nervous, then it probably would have had that effect.
Yeah, but yeah, no, and I totally get that. I mean, I think the first time I was just drinking with my brother, I did enjoy it. I did enjoy the kind of buzz that I got. And with you, did you kind of think, well, this is something I want to do more of, or were you kind of take it or leave it at the beginning?
I think I was take it or leave it at the beginning.
Yeah.
It kind of ended up being a big part of my teenage years because as we all started drinking, and I don't know if this is a chicken or egg situation, but we started listening to music that was all about heavy drinking, which kind of fed on itself. So it became the cultural thing to drink loads and go out and get hammered, and isn't this great? So
Yeah.
it kind of went that way. And the problem is, I think, particularly in the UK, there's so many different role models you can adopt for drinking.
Yeah.
So it just makes it a part of your self identity, I suppose, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I think I mean, I'm thinking we're maybe a similar age. I'm 46, but the 90s kind of have a lot to kind of answer for. With we had, and I'm not blaming Oasis or Blur or TFI Friday, but the whole culture around that time was lads, ladette culture, and it was everywhere. There wasn't any kind of stringence on what we saw on TV and music videos and all that. I mean, what was it? Cigarettes and alcohol. The front cover
Yeah,
of that was in a hotel room with like beer bottles and B&H and all that. And I aspired to that. Went and bought
yeah,
the single, and I was like, wow, these guys are cool. Do you know what I mean? And it sounds mad
yeah,
thinking back now to that,
yeah.
but yeah,
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 it's odd because you've got no concept of anything else. It's sort of weird. Yeah, I'm 50, by the way. So, yeah, very much the sort
yeah,
of the 90s
similar,
was the
yeah,
age of kind of growing up. But yeah, it was, I remember as well going on like a bus. If you got on public transport on a Friday or Saturday night, it was carnage.
yeah.
People were drunk and fighting. And I don't know if this is the same where you are. I'm in sort of near London, but it's just not the same these days. You get on a bus or a train Friday, Saturday night, there might be a couple of people a bit louder than normal, but it's not the absolute carnage it used to be.
I mean, I'm on the Isle of Man now, so it's a lot kind of different here. It's a bit more quieter
Mm.
and safer. I don't really get the bus on a Friday, Saturday night. But when I did, I lived in London about 10, 15 years ago, and the late night buses were actually some of the safest places you could be, and it's crazy. But
Mm.
growing up in Glasgow, if you were getting that late night bus home, even though there was like fines 400 quid for smoking, there was all sorts going on. Do you know what I mean? It was
I
it was
bet.
carnage. I don't know what it's like now. I'm sure
Yeah,
it's maybe a bit safer because they got cameras on buses now, haven't they? Back in those days,
they
there was,
have. That's
there was
true.
nothing.
Yeah,
So
no,
I don't know if that kind
absolutely.
of stops them a bit. But yeah, like it was carnage. And maybe society is learning, this is the craziness of people just letting loose and going for it. I'm sure the 80s were a bit mad as well, but it just seemed to kind of get to a point in the 90s where it was like, this is kind of out of control. I don't know if it is kind of there obviously there is going to be still drunken. Well, it's a massive problem in the city centres and stuff. On a weekend with fights and things. As I say, not so bad over here, but when I've gone across to the UK and things like that, like my friend lives in Ely. Ely's a tiny little like historical town, really. It's got the cathedral and all that, and we have to walk to get to his house. We have to walk past these two bars, and he said on a Friday, Saturday night, it's just absolute carnage, just fights in the street. Yeah, and that's in leafy little Ely, but because there's not enough
Yeah.
police to go around the whole of Cambridgeshire, Ely gets left out. So yeah, so they
Oh,
just
right,
free
okay.
for all.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Get away with it. Yeah, I think there's definitely a big cultural difference. I think because, like I say, we went out to get drunk. We
yeah,
didn't ever go out just to have one or two drinks.
yeah.
I think there's a bit of a difference with the current generation coming up. I know there's been statistics that they're kind of shying away from alcohol a lot more.
Mm-hmm.
Not 100% clear on the reason for that, but it seems to be the sort of trend they're following.
I mean, yeah, but I think a lot of the people still, causing trouble and things like that in the pubs are probably still our age, still, not ready to let the party die. And I see the stats of like what is it, millennials and Gen Z kind of, but I think they're very health conscious. They flip up their phone
Mm,
and they might Google, is alcohol bad for me? And you know what that Google's coming back. It's saying yes. So they're going to go, well, why am I going to do that? Yeah, they might be doing a bit more gummies and vapes because they think those are better for them. Jury's still out. But yeah, they do seem to be
mm.
a bit more health conscious, I think. And also, there's a control aspect. This is just purely my thoughts on it. They don't like being out of control where somebody might film them, being completely inebriated and
Yeah,
doing
that's a
something stupid. Whereas when we were
point.
teenagers, there was no one was in a field with a camcorder kind of, filming all our stupid antics and then spreading it around school on a Monday. So I think there is that they don't want to look stupid. So it's like, well, drinking completely puts me out of myself and makes me into something I'm not. So maybe I don't want
Yeah,
to be like that. So yeah.
you
So how
see,
were you,
right? Yeah, go viral with it. Yeah.
exactly, or not? Not much viral, but like I've got stepchildren, and there's so many things. Like they have these WhatsApp groups, and it's like who can have the most people in their WhatsApp group. So people they don't even know. You're talking like 300 people in a WhatsApp group, mostly in their school, but then the other schools. And if anyone's got something stupid or maybe AI, I know we're getting off topic, but that'll just get spread around, and nobody wants that. So it's a
No.
dangerous place that they're in. So they don't want to do anything stupid, I don't think. Yeah. So
Yeah.
how were your kind of teen years then? And was it kind of quite a regular thing, every week or?
Yeah, it started off so we'd go out Friday, Saturday night and drink as much as we possibly could. So how it
Yeah.
would normally work out is we'd go out on a Friday after college or work or whatever, and get as drunk as we possibly could, and then we'd meet up on the Saturday.
Hmm.
And I kind of remember like meeting up on a Saturday, when you really don't want to drink, but it's what you do. So you go out and do it, and you're kind of forcing these beers down, and they're just not sinking down, like
Yeah.
really struggling with it, and not realizing at the time that I was building that dependence because, fast forward a few years, the more hungover I was, the more I wanted a drink to take the edge off it and get me back to normal. And I think of all those hours I spent in a pub trying really hard to drink the beer I didn't want to drink, but it's slowly having that effect on me because at the end of the day, it does make you feel better when you've been drinking too much. You have a
Yeah.
drink and it's superficial and it's short term, but you do
Yeah.
feel better for it. And I
I
think that
mean,
was the big change for me. It was realizing, or being hungover and wanting to drink rather than being hungover and really not being able to face it.
yeah. I mean, I was going to say that is one of the most fascinating parts of Alcohol Explained. The hair of the dog. I don't know if we ever specifically call that because it's a science book, but like we used to call it the Curer up in Scotland, and
Mhm.
like I knew from quite an early age that if I was feeling rough, couple of pints, yeah, if I got them down me, I worked in bars and things like that. I knew if I got them down me, then I was going to be okay. And reading your book, it's like, well, those neural pathways I'm opening up. And when I read that, I said to my wife, like, have you ever thought about having, hair of the dog? Obviously, she knows what it is. And she's like, no, if I'm feeling rough, the last thing on earth I want to do is have another drink. But there's two types of people. There's people that will have that. And then, as you say, the more and more they do it, the more their brain's going, well, if you're feeling like shit, here you go. And it doesn't necessarily mean you have to have that the morning after. It can be get through a hellish day at work and then you get home and you crack that bottle or two and it's like, the relief, And I think, as you said in the book, that's kind of the slippery slope into kind of, making your brain think, yeah, this is the cure. And then that leads on to the addiction, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, it does. And I think that's one of the key things is that getting home on a certain time, you don't need. So this is what I kind of struggled with. Well, I kind of have a problem with drinking because I don't drink all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't necessarily matter that you don't drink all the time. Even people who are very heavy smokers, for example, and are clearly addicted to nicotine will sleep 6-8 hours at night without waking up. So you can go some time without having a problem with the withdrawal. But you're having it, that's the thing, that every evening going back to it to correct the balance that it caused, the problem that it caused in the first place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it was almost like just, right, that's because I've always been thinking, was it like trauma that kind of led me to, have an alcohol problem or this? I had a decent childhood, a really good childhood growing up, never had any major trauma. Yeah, I liked alcohol, but I used alcohol as a tool for, confidence, things like that. But then looking back, we would go to the pub. There was a pub in Aberdeen that was open from 6 a.m. because of the fishermen or people coming in from the rigs. And a couple of times we'd go in there just for, shits and giggles, have an early morning beer while the big breakfast was on the TV. And it was like, this is bizarre. But that became a thing where, I knew that, like, if I was feeling rough, get a couple of drinks in you, and then it's like you're off to the races again. So yeah, it's fascinating. But I think a lot of people don't do that. They won't have the drink the next day. But like a lot of people are doing that, especially if they've been out on a Friday night and then it gets to Saturday afternoon, they're like, oh, I need a pint, and they maybe don't have a problem yet, but I think it's a slippery slope that kind of leads to it. So what was your kind of, late teens? What kind of, did you go to college, uni, and what was your kind of studying like?
Yeah, so I went to college, Esher College, in Surrey, and then from there I went to Cardiff University, and then after that I went to the College of Law in Guildford. So I had quite a long stint in education. So yeah, it all seemed to be, again, even like in university, it was quite hard drinking, but it's what everyone did. I wasn't unique in going out and getting drunk. And it's almost like society then moves the goalpost because, like 18, 19, 20, 21, let's all go out and get really hammered. But then as you then transition into work and middle age, you're kind of expected to not get drunk. And it's like, well, hang on, that's the wrong way round. You end up drinking more, not less.
Yeah, so this is what you've trained me to do all these years. And now you're saying, no, now you've got a job, a career, you've got to toe the line. And it's like, but I've been doing this for years. And like, what are your thoughts on Freshers Week? Because that's still a thing. When I was at uni, it's just like, I know Freshers Week is to introduce people to clubs and political parties and all of that kind of stuff. But let's be honest, Freshers Week is all about the booze, isn't it? Like the cheap deals. And
absolutely. It was when I was there. I don't know what it's like now, but it was all about just drinking as much as you possibly could. And it was about drinking as much and as fast as you could. I remember being at Cardiff and I was in halls of residence slightly outside the city, which had its own bar. And they used to do this thing where, say, 5 o'clock or whatever, everyone would go in and they'd shut the doors and they would give you free booze until the first person went to the it was mad, and
So
it's
you're
like
just
trying
all
to.
there, like just going for it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah, as much as you possibly could, try not. Yeah, yeah. So it was like carnage, and the days of like a pound a pint as well. I remember
Yeah.
doing pound a pint on the pub and stuff, and
We had
yeah.
a we had a thing up in Aberdeen, and I didn't go to uni in Aberdeen, but I was in college and working in the unions and all that. We had a thing called a snapfax, which was like these two magnetic metal bits, but inside it was like a concertina bit of paper. So you just pull it out like that, and it just had
Hmm.
all of these tokens and vouchers, and it was all booze. There might have been a token McDonald's or Burger King free burger, but it was all just half pint drinks, pound a pint, and all that. And it was like these were like after a couple of weeks of being at uni, these things were like gold dust. So it was like if someone had a snap fact, oh, get your snap facts out, come on, we'll go and do this. And it was just pure carnage. Now, like, don't get me wrong, I had a good time, man, but I had no understanding or knowledge of the dangers. Like, I knew smoking was bad, and I thought, yeah, I'm going to give that up when I'm older. Once before it becomes a problem, I'm going to give that up. But drinking was just like, yeah, like before we get into more, like, for the World Health Organization to have categorized it as a, category 1 carcinogen in 1988, like, why is more not being said about that? I mean, I'm not saying, William, tell us why this isn't, but what, it's unfathomable. I'm reading a book at the moment about the Sacklers. It's called Empire
Hmm.
of Pain, by Patrick
Yeah,
Radden.
yeah.
Brilliant book. And there's talk in that about when I can't remember his name. They took the tobacco companies to court. They brought up a lawsuit against them and said, and
Hmm.
I think it was either settled out of court or whatever. Why is that not happening for the alcohol firms? Because let's be honest, it's a carcinogen. We know it is. It's related to over 200 diseases, and still, they're allowed to advertise it, and they're getting away with it like the tobacco companies were doing, and I don't get it. I'm
I think
baffled.
it comes down to this kind of, or for me anyway, just this great societal misunderstanding of exactly what alcohol is and how it affects us.
Hmm.
Because every time you see an advert for alcohol, it says drink sensibly.
Yeah,
Um, how are you supposed to take a drug sensibly? The whole point of it is as it wears off, it leaves an unpleasant feeling, which requires another dose of the drug to get rid of that feeling.
yep.
So every time you take a dose, it creates the need for the next and the next and the next.
Hmm.
So it's like saying take heroin sensibly or smoke cigarettes sensibly. That's not how they work. The inclination is to always have more and more and more of it, because as our brains and bodies get used to it, we need more and more to get the same effect. And we
Yeah,
also need more and more to fill the gap that it leaves when it leaves our system. So
yeah,
and I don't know if you've seen the statistics, but there was a graph and it showed where the money for the tobacco industry came from, and it had in terms of how much people drink. So the people who had like one or two drinks, three or four drinks, and then the heavy drinkers 12 plus. I can't remember the exact figures, so don't quote me.
hmm,
But the biggest chunk by far of their income, surprise, surprise, came from people who were drinking very irresponsibly.
yeah.
So it's kind of that weird thing where they're putting these warnings on, but I suppose, like with smoking, in the full knowledge that people ignore them.
Yeah, and that's their biggest customer. So they're like,
Hmm.
why would we want to kind of help the people that are struggling and heavy drinking and problematic drinking? Because by far they're our biggest customer. But like going back to what you're saying, it's like an oxymoron, isn't it? I think that's the right word. By saying drink responsibly or sensibly for something that inherently makes you irresponsible. The more you drink of it. So, like, I don't know about you, but like, once if someone said to me, let's go for one, we'll just have one, it was like, well, it was never going to be just one, it was going to be, 5 or 6 or 20, and that's the thing. The more you do of it, the more irresponsible you become. But it's like they're saying, right, the onus is on you. We've done our bit. We've told you to drink responsibly. Hold our hands up now. It's on you. So it's just absolute
Yeah.
madness. Yeah.
It's the same with smoking, isn't it? And like, okay, well, we've told you the health risks, but
Yeah.
it's an addictive drug. Health risks don't come into it, because when you're feeling rubbish, because of whatever reason, be it you're withdrawing from nicotine or alcohol,
Mm-hmm.
you want another dose to make you feel better, and that's what it comes down to. And
Yeah.
it's always about short-term gain, isn't it? It's like, I feel a bit rubbish, I really like a cigarette or a drink to make me feel better. I can't have one because it's bad for me, whatever. And eventually you go through this mind game and eventually make an excuse why today isn't the right day. I'll do it tomorrow or the next or the next. And we just keep grabbing at that each additional day every day,
Yeah.
while years and decades slip by.
Oh, without a doubt. And smoking was, it was the worst for me. I mean, I say the worst. I always thought I want to quit smoking, even when drinking was, definitely a problem. But I was like, I didn't see it as a problem at that point. But smoking was always something that I was like, yeah, I'm going to quit on Monday. And then I would maybe have 2 or 3 days or something like that. And then, maybe even make it a week, and then it get to the weekend, and then I knew I'd be drinking. My friends would pop open their cigarette packs and I'll get one. And then I'd be off to the vending machine to get 16 Lambert and Butlers. So it was, I was always trying to quit. And then I vaped for a long time, and then I stopped that. Vaping was great for me because I know the jury's still out on it, but when I was a runner, and when I was smoking and running, I could feel it on my chest.
Okay.
But when I vaped, my lungs felt clearer, and then obviously now they're brand new almost, I hope. But it's
Wow.
mad that
You
we've
did
got
well
this.
I was going to say you did well to smoke and run. Jeez.
Yeah, I mean, William, when I was about 28, I was a heavy drinker, I was a heavy smoker, and I ran a marathon in 4 hours and 13. I know, like, unbelievable. So like, let's be honest.
Wow.
If someone was to come to me and say, right, you've got a problem, Jimmy, I'd be like, what are you talking about? I just ran a marathon, 4 hours 13.
Yeah.
Gutted I couldn't do under 4, but like, I was on paper, I was ticking all the boxes. Apart from in the background, my life was literally falling apart. But it took me another 12 years to finally get sober, which is madness. So when did it stop being fun for you? So you've kind of done uni and I assume got a job in your career and in law and
that's right. So I sort of I moved to so when you do law, I think it's the same now. You have to get a training contract, so you work for very little for 2 years before you actually qualify as a solicitor.
Sure.
And they're notoriously hard to get hold of. So while I was trying to look for that, I was doing paralegaling work, so kind of just basically office clerking. Mm-hmm. It was for a very big London law firm who had a huge department of paralegals. So it was almost like going back to university, because there was lots of people my age, freshly out of university, doing this job just to try and do a stepping stone to getting a training contract.
Mm-hmm.
And we just go out drinking loads. So it was, I don't know how much detail to go into, but so the drinking sort of carried on then. I was getting a bit, not sick of the drinking as such, but just the dullness of existence almost. Like you're just going to this office and then doing this. And so I was thinking around other things to do, and I can't remember how it all actually came about. I think it was Christmas or something, and I was sat on the sofa half drunk watching, and an advert came on for the Territorial Army.
Oh, yeah.
And
how old were you at this point?
So I was 26-ish at this point, so kind of like mid-20s. And so I had a look at local TA centres, and I ended up, for reasons I can't remember, going to the Parachute Regiment one.
Wow.
So I hadn't quite appreciated, because to me it was almost like, this isn't the real army, it's like cadets almost, but it wasn't. And everyone was like, no, you have to do P Company, which is a selection, it's the same as the regular army.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, well, look, I don't think I'm quite up for that, but I'll give it a go. And so I quit drinking and everything. So I actually stopped drinking for 3 months, because I thought, so if you know what, I don't mind failing, but I want to know I've given it my absolute best shot.
Yeah, you want to get yourself in shape and get yourself. Yeah. And also, was Band of Brothers on around that time?
Do you know, I think it must have been afterwards. No,
it's one of my all-time favourite shows. Do you know what I mean? And it's made me think, when it first came out, I was like, oh, I could be parachuter. I could be in the Parachute Regiment. Yeah. I'm not saying you were influenced by that, William, but yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah. So I was in that for a few years, and obviously again, So I'm doing a job on the side where there's quite heavy drinking, and obviously the military side's tied to very heavy drinking, or
Of
certainly
course.
was back in the, when would it have been, early 2000s.
Yeah.
And then towards 2005, I got mobilised and sent out to Iraq. So that was like a big whoa. And it was an interesting one because although the mobilisation was 6 months, we had, I think, 2 months before like build-up training,
Yeah.
theatre-specific training, and then 2 months afterwards for what they call decompression.
Uh-huh.
So beforehand, it was one of those weird things, when you do something so life-changing, and you it's almost like waking up from a dream and thinking, hang on, what have I done here? How have I managed to get
That's what I was going
to
to say. Were
this?
you expecting that? Because obviously the territorials it's a good job, I guess, and it gets you in shape and you're learning new skills and all that. Were you expecting to be deployed? And obviously when you say Iraq,
No.
I'm like thinking, oh my God, because that
Yeah.
must have
So
been
when I
horrendous.
joined, I think they hadn't mobilised reserve forces since the Second World War. So it
Right.
absolutely wasn't expected. To
Yeah.
be fair to them, they did say to us, those that were getting mobilised, they said, you are going to receive papers saying that you have to mobilise and blah, blah, blah. They said, we don't want people going who don't want to go.
Sure.
So if you do not want to receive papers, get over there and hand your kit in and leave. So that was
Mm-hmm.
basically the deal we were given.
Yeah. Yeah.
And obviously I stayed on. But see, this is the thing with the army. It's very good at, it's good in a way, but bad in a way. It kind of like you look at stuff and think, oh, I could never do that. And it kind of finds a way to make you do it. So it's like really good
Yeah.
for
Of
self-esteem and stuff. But
course.
like I said, I was going through this build-up training, and we do like a couple of weeks wherever doing live firing or whatever, and then have like a week off. And I'd just be waking up thinking, what am I playing at? How am I doing this? So I started off
Yeah.
drinking in the morning because what I found was I realised now a lot of it was probably to do with the night's previous drinking, but I'd wake up feeling riddled with anxiety,
Yeah.
really kind of almost panicking, and I'd have a drink and I'd suddenly feel great, and I'd be like, this is going to be a great experience. It's what I've trained for. Bring
Bring
it
it
on,
on.
kind of thing. So
Yeah.
I ended up drinking when I was not training all day pretty much. I'd wake up and drink regularly throughout the day just to keep the
And
terror away.
was this like kind of secret drinking, or were you doing it with others, or, and I'm
It
guessing
was
it
made,
wasn't allowed, so, or was it
it
okay?
was, I didn't make much of a secret of it, to be honest.
Yeah.
I'd moved out, but when I was called up, because I was living in rented, I didn't
Mm.
want to rent a place for 8 months or 6 months or whatever, I wasn't there. So I gave the tenancy up and moved back in with my mum and dad short term.
Hmm.
And I didn't really make any. My mum's odd in that she's got a morbid fear of smoking and drugs, but a
Okay.
complete blind spot with alcohol.
Yeah.
So when I
Yeah.
was growing up, I could come home as drunk as I wanted to, and she'd just kind of laugh it off as long as I wasn't taking what she thought of as drugs, like
Hmm.
cannabis or heroin or something. That was her big fear. So I was going through this point, and I remember getting up in the morning. I'd make myself half a cup of coffee and fill it up with Cointreau.
Mm.
Um, and I think I didn't. So I didn't make a secret of it, but I think the view of everyone was it's a tough period. You deal with it how you can. When you come back, it will be different. You won't need to keep doing this,
Yeah. Yeah.
which kind of makes sense on one level, but I can quite appreciate it. Like you're saying, you're creating these neural pathways that are very hard to then step away from, even when things change.
Yeah.
So I was drinking all day, every day. We went out there, and Iraq at the time was completely dry. So
Yeah.
I ended up doing the full 6 months not drinking,
Oh,
and
not
then
even on
came
the
back.
base. You couldn't even get
No,
alcohol base,
nothing at
right?
all. Yeah, nothing
That's
at all. So I was
interesting.
completely dry for 6 months. And again, I think I knew that before I went out. So I think that was part of my mindset, and probably friends and family who knew I was drinking all the time, was it's a tough period. You're doing what you can to get through it.
Yeah.
And you've got 6 months of not drinking when you're out there. So you have a detox, you'll come back fine.
Yeah.
But the problem is you come back to, like I say, 2 months decompression. So you're still signed off work with the army wage coming in, but just nothing to do. So I
Mm.
ended up again going back to drinking every day because you're catching up with people, you're back. So it went back to almost like I don't think it was quite as bad as when I was going out, but I was drinking a lot all day, every day.
Mm-hmm.
And then from there, I went back to work, changed jobs, and then I got married so I got back from Iraq in 2006, and 2008 I got married.
Mm-hmm.
2011 had a son, and 2012 had a second son.
Okay.
So if we jump forward a bit to when the boys were like a year or two, 3 years old, whatever, my life looked like I get up, go to work, and then when Friday came, usually Friday lunchtime, I'd hit the pub and start drinking.
Yeah.
And then I'd go out, go home and carry on drinking. I'd fall asleep. And when we do, the 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock wake ups you get when you've been drinking, I'd get up, have another drink to get back to sleep, wake up in the morning, have a drink to get out of bed. So I was drinking pretty constantly throughout the weekends. There might be the odd weekend here, or I'd get up and make it to midday or whatever.
Yeah.
But this was one of the things I realised I couldn't do my job hungover. I knew I couldn't. Mm-hmm. So I never got into the habit of daily drinking. So what I would do is kind of, when it started off, I'd drink heavily on Saturday, have Sunday as a rest day, and then go back into work on Monday sort of feeling generally okay.
Yeah.
But the problem is, of course, you start like Sunday, do you want to drink at lunchtime? And actually you really do, because it's going to make you feel way better, because you feel dreadful anyway.
Yeah.
So the Sunday drinking starts picking up. And then the problem is, when that starts picking up, you wake up on Monday feeling awful, and then it's not a long journey before you start ringing in sick. Now, the problem is, you're ringing in sick, you've got 3 days hangover, feeling absolutely awful, sat at home with nothing to do, really hard not to have another drink. So it was getting longer and longer and longer, these binges. Basically just more and more out of hand. It was getting ridiculous. So it was in February 2014, I sort of crawled out from what had been 5 days constant drinking, and just thought, I cannot do this anymore. I have to stop.
And was there any, like, apart from that, obviously the end, like, was there any warning signs, and was your family, your wife at this point kind of saying, your drinking has escalated, or were you just kind of, did it just become a kind of normal thing?
It was no. See, this is the interesting thing. My family and I were fairly heavy drinkers. Obviously not to the extent of my drinking, but, with a family bash or something, we'd have drinks, all of us, and we'd all end up getting like half cut. And it was just kind of like a fun thing to do. But my wife grew up where they just didn't really drink. And even like having one was, let alone having half a dozen. So it was a really weird kind of cultural clash. So she was constantly telling me I was drinking too much. But in my mind, I was like, yeah, but you don't know.
You're just a square. You don't know what drinking is. This is fine. This is what normal people do.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So there was a degree of kind of burying my head in the sand, but it got to the point where, I knew myself that there was something badly wrong. It wasn't going as it ought to be.
Mm-hmm. And after that 5 days, like, you thought, right, something's got to change. Like, did you think, I need to stop drinking completely, or did you think I need to moderate? What was your kind of thought process at that point?
So my thought process there in February 14 was, I have to stop completely.
Yeah.
I can't moderate. I know it's interesting because so many people try to moderate. I never even tried, for the simple reason that I did not enjoy it.
Yeah.
So if I sat down and had one drink, I wouldn't enjoy it because I'd want more and more. So I didn't want to moderate. If I had a choice between moderating and abstaining completely, I'd choose abstaining. Mm-hmm. So when I got to that point, I knew that I didn't want to drink normally. I had a choice between drinking myself, to that level, or cutting out completely. Mm-hmm. So the decision was made to cut out completely. Honestly, at that point, I could scarcely put a coherent thought together. I was in a really bad way. I remember going to bed on the Saturday or Sunday night and just literally not sleeping a single wink, when you're so like geared up and shaking and trembling.
Withdrawal. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So all I did, and this is one of the things I was very lucky for, because I never got into the habit of drinking every day.
Hmm.
I knew from personal experience, however bad I was, I'd have, day one would be absolutely abysmal, day two would be bad. When I hit day three, four, and started sleeping properly and waking up, I'd start to feel a bit better.
Yeah.
And I think that was the thing that gave me the ability to quit, was absolute faith that if I just stick with it for a few days, I'm going to feel so much better.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I grit my teeth and just sort of got on with it for those few days.
Hmm.
But my mindset then was, I have to stop. I cannot keep doing this, but it means I'm not going to enjoy Christmas, holidays, social occasions. All of that is now just something I will never enjoy for the rest of my life because I can't drink. And the only reason in my mind that I enjoyed them was because of the alcohol. So, but I just accepted that. It was like, well, I definitely can't keep doing this. So if that means going through Christmas bored and not having a nice time because I'm not drinking, then that's the price I'll have to pay for it. Fortunately, I found out through personal experience that was complete rubbish.
Yeah.
Obviously,
Yeah.
could enjoy things, absolutely, but
And
yeah,
enjoy them more, and you're not numbing your way through life.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And
And I think,
enjoy them rather than just it being an excuse to drink for longer hours or earlier in the morning or whatever it is.
yeah, and being present. I mean, we can go into so many different things that, without alcohol, we're actually living life, and not this is living our best life, not on some booze cruise in the middle of the meds. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, oh, living my best life. But so and that's the thing. Like, people, I think you talk about it a lot in the book, like withdrawal. I was definitely
Mm-hmm.
withdrawing at the end. I had to be detoxed twice. But I think people forget that hangover is a very minimal form of withdrawal. Well, whatever level of hangover you have. I had times back in the day when I was feeling absolutely rough for a couple of days. That is withdrawal.
Mm.
Your body is withdrawing from it, but people just call it a hangover. They don't realize,
Yeah,
they've done some damage, and their body is getting, like, little by little, kind of dependent on it.
absolutely. Yeah, I think so. Most people, when you talk about alcohol withdrawal, they think about DTs and seizures and all
Yeah.
that kind of stuff, which is part of alcohol withdrawal, but
Mhm.
it's the extreme end.
Yeah.
People don't go from nothing to delirium tremens and seizures. There's an intervening period where it gets worse and worse and worse, and it starts off with kind of mild anxiety,
Hmm.
and as you drink more, it becomes worse. So the brain releases its own array of chemicals, drugs, and hormones, and it works trying to keep this balance. It's called homeostasis, but just that chemical balance in our brains. So when you have alcohol, which is a sedative, your brain does lots of things. Like it releases adrenaline and cortisol. Cortisol is a stress hormone. Adrenaline is I've got the word now, stimulant. So what it's
Hmm.
doing is it's trying to counter the sedating effects of the alcohol. But the problem is when the alcohol then wears off, you've got all these chemicals in your bloodstream making you feel really stressed and not very good.
Yeah.
So the easiest way I explain it to people is for every action there's an equal and opposite reaction. So
Hmm.
whatever relaxing, calming, whatever you want to call it, depressing effect you get from an alcoholic drink, there's a corresponding feeling of anxiety when it wears off. And because our brains get better and better at countering the alcohol, you're
Hmm.
constantly drinking more to get the same effect. Now, of course, if you think about that corresponding feeling, if you've had a small glass of wine, that corresponding feeling is probably virtually imperceivable. It's just too minor to notice.
Yeah.
But if you're getting to the point of having like a dozen drinks, serious amounts of alcohol, that withdrawal phase is decidedly unpleasant. Like I
Yeah.
say, a lot of people think of withdrawal as that extreme end, and it is, but that's not all. I think of withdrawal, this is how I define it: it's an unpleasant feeling caused by a chemical imbalance
Hmm.
that is itself caused by the previous dose of a drug wearing off.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
taking that, if you have a couple of glasses of wine and don't drink and feel a bit twitchy afterwards, that
Hmm.
is the very smallest end of withdrawal. If you're waking up at 3, 4 in the morning, unable to get back to sleep because you're drinking, because you've got all these excess stimulants knocking around,
Hmm.
that is alcohol withdrawal that's waking you up.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's fascinating, but so many people that are going out, the weekend and they're not realizing they're like, and it's got this
No.
new quirky name, hangxiety. Oh, I'm feeling a little bit, I close
Yeah.
the curtains and I want my McDonald's, and it's like, oh, I've just got hangxiety. It's like, no, you're withdrawing, and
Yeah.
you need to do kind of something about it, and actually start living
Yeah.
your life better. So how was
Yeah.
your
Yeah.
your withdrawal, and how did you get through that kind of week after was that your
It
final
was.
drink then? Have you never had a drink since then?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
Well
No.
done, man.
That's it. Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I've had occasions. I think most people do by accident. Like I remember taking night nurse,
Oh
night
yeah.
nurse, and not
Yeah.
realizing it was lower. Like, but apart from kind of those sort of situations, that
Sure.
was the last time. Um, and it was that first week. Like I say, those first few days were horrendous,
Yeah.
like really bad. But slowly sort of came out the other side of it. And you do a lot of damage when you're drinking, and it takes a long time
Yeah.
to repair it. It's shocking how much damage you can cause in such a short space of time
Hmm.
that then takes months and years to kind of rebuild the trust, etc., that you break when you're drinking.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it is. I mean, did your work or anything, were they kind of aware, or did they realize that you were kind of not performing at your best and kind of having questions about that? And
So what I used to do, I used to go in on a Monday and do virtually nothing.
hmm
Tuesday it would pick up a bit, and then I'd work really hard Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And I've always been, I'm not sure why, but I've always been pretty good at getting to the nub of things. So, and this isn't blowing my own trumpet, it's just a simple
hmm
fact that, like the team I'm in, if we're all given a task, I do mine in half the time. And it's just, I don't know what it is, but I just manage to focus on the thing that needs doing.
yeah.
So I think work, again, probably just, oh yeah, it's Monday, Sam's off with a hangover or blah, 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 and laugh. But it didn't get to the point of being, right, you're on a warning or anything, because I was doing the
Yeah.
work was getting done.
Yeah.
And really, it didn't matter if it was being done equally Monday to Friday, all crammed into Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. It was getting done. So
Yeah. If
I
you were
didn't
getting to
fortunately get to
Friday
that
and
stage.
they're like, William's not done his work this week, and it's like, then he's off on
Yeah, yeah,
Monday and it's piling up. It's like, yeah, they're going to have questions, but if you're doing the work,
yeah,
it's like, well, you know what? It's work hard, play hard. I hate that saying, but that's what, you
yeah.
know,
That's exactly, yeah.
yeah.
That
I
was
mean,
the
the play hard is
mindset.
fine
Yeah,
if you're out climbing Everest and all that at the weekend, but we know that that's not what that phrase means. It means you're going out and
no,
getting absolutely twatted and doing your work.
taking a drug all weekend and making
Yeah.
yourself really ill from it.
Yeah,
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 yeah.
yeah. It's crazy. So, like, how were like the first couple of, I said, like for me, the 3 months is where the magic starts. I know it does take years
Mm.
for certain things to come back, but 3 months, you're kind of generally, your clarity's back, your skin's looking better, you're starting to kind of come out of that cocoon that you're in. So, how were those 3 months, and then going forward, did you start having cravings at all, or were you kind of? I
No,
mean, you
I
sound
was
like
all
quite a
right.
headstrong person that you're like, no, I'm done. I'm done now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it got better and better. And I think one of the things that encouraged me most is when I quit,
Hmm.
I was kind of the mindset, like, I'm not going to enjoy social events, blah, blah, blah. But I know in 2 or 3 days I'll feel myself again. So
Yeah.
that's great. And how I'd lived my life for years was, like I say, drink loads at the weekend and then kind of have a couple of days at the beginning of the week feeling rubbish, and then feel what I considered to be normal Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then back to drinking again.
Hmm.
But as I started to go beyond a week and into like a second week, third week, month, I started to realize that what I thought was me feeling normal was probably 60% of how I should have been feeling. Because, of course, you can't be poisoning yourself to that level and just get out the other side of it in a few days. And the consistency of having days, weeks, and eventually months of like not messing with my brain's natural chemistry and sleeping properly, and then you exercise more, you've got more energy and more inclination to do it. So those three things combined made me realize that, I thought I was at 100% and I was at 60%, and I feel so much better for it now.
Hmm.
So that was one of the magical things that happened. And of course, the other thing was actually learning you can enjoy social events. You did as a child. It's just, I quite often say that, you know, stopping drinking is about learning skills we used to instinctively know and have forgotten, like socializing sober. We did it before we had alcohol in our lives. It's only when you have it there that you then seem to not be able to socialize without it. So, of course, I'd go out to social events. I wouldn't be looking forward to them, but hopefully at some point I'd end up like chatting to someone and losing myself in the conversation and start to think, you know what, I'm actually enjoyed that evening. It wasn't as bad as I thought.
Yeah.
And of course, the more you do that, the more you relax, the easier it becomes to actually enjoy everything without drinking.
Yeah. And I always say those conversations that you have on a sober event, you know, even if there's people over there inebriated or whatever, they're more meaningful because you're having deep, fulfilling conversations that you're going to remember, and hopefully the other person's going to remember. You know, I mean, I'm not a massively social person. Well, I wouldn't say I'm not social. I just don't like big events where there's loads of people and there's loads of drink, because I know that there's going to be a certain level in the evening when people are going to be a little bit more inebriated, and I'm not going to have the same conversations. So I'm like, yeah, I'm going to go home, you know, and that's kind of where I'm at. But, you know, I think I've said this a few times on the podcast. I don't think many of the people enjoy those events. They're only enjoying them because they've got that tool, you know. And if we were to say, right, no one's going to drink here tonight, people would be like, I'm just going to stay at home, you know, because, you know, their anxiety's up. Yeah.
Yeah, one of the great things I realised is that when you think, oh, I'm going to go to this event and not drink, and oh my God, everyone will be wondering why I'm not drinking. And suddenly you realise people don't care. They're not interested in what you're drinking. I used to, like so many times, and it was an eye opener. I'd be, you know, out for the evening and I'd be drinking like alcohol-free beers or Cokes or orange juice or whatever.
Yeah.
And then the next morning, everyone, oh, I'm really hungover. How are you? It's like, well, I'm fine. I wasn't drinking. They were like, what do you mean you weren't drinking? But they just assume everyone's drinking, even if you're not.
Yeah.
And I still do this. I love it so much because when everyone's drinking, and if it's a big work function, there's different pockets of people.
Mm-hmm.
And what I do is literally just walk off and go home. Don't feel obliged to say goodbye to anyone, because everyone just assumes I would be there, but talking to a different group or off to the toilet or whatever.
Yeah.
And then you can pick a time that you should have left. Like, oh yeah, I left around 10 or 11 when you're actually out the door at 8.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's mad. The Irish Goodbye is my favourite. We went to a 50th a couple of years ago, and, you know, they're all mostly friends of my wife, but it was a free bar. They had a pop-up bar in the house, so there was cocktails and everything. Okay. And we decided, I was like, right, come on, let's get out of here. It was about 11:30, so I was still, about, I don't know, 3, maybe 4 years sober. So I hadn't done many sober events, but that was a late time for me. It still took us another hour to leave because we went around saying goodbye. It's like to Jen, I was like, next time can we just do it? Because they're all like, oh no, stay a bit longer. And my wife, she'd been drinking, but she never really gets drunk. She'd only have a couple. But honestly, it took us another like 45 an hour to get out of there, and then by that time they were all leaving on their bus. So it was like, right, done. Yeah, Irish Goodbye next time. So when was that you got sober? How many years have you got now, William?
So it was 2014. So what we do, like just over 12 years,
12 years
now.
Yeah, well done, man. That's amazing. That's amazing.
It's interesting because it's like I said, I've just turned 50 in February, and I looking back on it, although I was fit, I was exercising and all the rest of it, I wasn't that good a shape physically.
Yeah.
And the thought of where I'd be now if I hadn't stopped drinking is usually quite scary, because I can't imagine it would be anywhere good. And even the stuff, you feel different. You feel and realise how much damage you're doing to your body when you stop and realise the difference. But I had quite grey hair, so I've just got a bit of grey hair now. Bear in mind, it was 12 years ago. I had more grey hair then.
Wow.
Stopping drinking. And that's just something you can see. So the stuff that's going on with your heart and your arteries and your liver and all the rest of it is just best not to think about until you quit. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know what's going on with my beard. I mean, I was 40 when I got sober, and I wasn't as grey on the beard, but maybe that's just the age. But yeah, I was 40. I not long had my 40th birthday, and then everything started to hit the fan. We had COVID, and I ended up in rehab and all of these things. But it was like, I like you, I can't imagine what I would still be here, I'm sure, but I would probably be in some painful,
fit state for a lot of things, you know, and it would just be, yeah, as you say, you feel different. I feel better. You know, I gave up whatever jobs I was doing before. I was always working in offices, and now I'm a gardener, and I'm just outside doing it, you know, working with my hands.
It's
I'm
really
my
nice,
own
isn't it?
boss,
Yeah.
and I love it. You know, like obviously winter's not great, but I'm still out doing it, you know, and it's just, you
Yeah.
know, it's a whole new way of life. But I see a lot of people that are, you know, friends that I grew up with and things like that, and they're still out there, maybe not drinking as much as they used to, but I'm just like, why are you still kind of doing that? I know it's maybe not an issue with you, but you're making an enemy of your future self, you know. But it's difficult to kind of get that point across, I think, because people think, oh well,
Yeah.
you had to quit because you're an alcoholic and all that. And I'm like, yeah, that's not the point though. I'm not like, I'm glad I was an alcoholic. I'm glad I had to quit now because my life is so much healthier and fulfilled now. And that's, you know, you can't tell.
Yeah. It's like that concept, the sort of the danger of mediocrity. So like, if you're in a relationship that's not particularly good, you're actually worse off than if the relationship's really abysmal, because if it's abysmal, you do something about it and leave. If it's kind of mediocre, you just put up with it because it's easier. Same with like a job. If you're not particularly happy in your job, you're worse off than if you're really miserable, because you haven't got the drive and inclination to go and find something that you actually enjoy. And that's exactly how I feel about what I did with alcohol. I'm the same as you. I'm glad I drank to the level I did and found this. You know, like I've already had a dozen years of sober living, and it's just so much better than the years I was drinking. So I'm really grateful for it. Yeah, because I mean, similar age to you, I think I was 38. I would have been 38 when I quit. So just at the tail end of my 30s, when it was all starting, you know, wheels were really starting to come off things.
And, you know, we're all thankful that you did. And so what year did you, you know, did it take you long to write Alcohol Explained? And, you know, was that something that you'd thought from the beginning, or?
No, I wrote it, I think it was in 2015.
Okay.
So it wasn't long after I mean, I say it wasn't long, it was only like a year or two after I quit. But the thing is, I'd been to AA a couple of times, and I'd always been kind of curious and researching things, you know, like the midnight or the 4 in the morning wake ups. It's like, why am I waking up like that every time I drink? So I'd research it. So I was looking into all of this stuff and did a bit of psychology at university as well. So that was kind of giving me more and more insights. And I ended up with a fairly good idea on the basis of some fairly basic science and a lot of my own experience and self-analysis of how things were making me feel, about how it all fitted together. And I did like 2 stints in AA. What I was finding was a lot of people wanted to know the ins and outs of it, but no one seemed to have the answer to it. And I thought, what I have is probably not perfect, but it helped me, and I'm convinced that the knowledge I had about drinking allowed me to escape. So I had the idea of putting it in a book. And from fairly early on, because this is the interesting thing, I think my knowledge didn't all come after I quit drinking. Probably 70% of it came beforehand. So although I quit in 2014, I probably started learning about quitting, I don't know, a decade, 15, 20 years before that.
Yeah. Well, it's all the experience, isn't it? And, you know, what can someone drink moderately forever, or does alcohol usually escalate over time? What are your thoughts on that? You know, I think
theoretically it's got to be possible. You know, and don't forget, a lot of what we're talking about here, we can talk about, you know, like the physical side of it, but a big part of addiction and being driven to do something is what you mentioned before, craving. And a lot feeds into craving. To me, it's a completely conscious thought process. So I think it's absolute, and some people do drink moderately their whole lives. And I think it's conceivably possible that if you were brought up to say you only drink 1 beer on a Friday night and that's what you do for your whole life, there's no reason necessarily, as long as you had a fairly simple life, you know, nothing, no major traumas or anything, why you wouldn't be able to maintain that. But I think most of us are drinking to obtain this particular feeling. And I think the big problem with alcohol is, because it's a sedative, it becomes our coping mechanism. So when you have an argument with your partner or a bad day at work, it's like, oh, I'll have a drink to take the edge off it, which is fine. But when you get to the point like I was at of having things falling to pieces, so you're constantly stressed and miserable, what do? Just drink all the time? Well, yeah, that's pretty much what I did.
Yeah. I mean, I think, stop me if I'm wrong, but I always say, like, yeah, people can drink moderately, but you're a couple of traumatic experiences away from it being used as a tool, and then, like you're just saying, that's a slippery slope because it compounds and compounds, and you know, you're depressed because these things have happened, then you're depressed because you're drinking too much, and you drink more and you drink more. So it is dangerous. I mean, I agree. I think a lot, like my wife, she doesn't really drink at all. I think she's got a couple of cans of gin and tonic in the fridge that have been in there. They're probably out of date now, you know, but she'll go out with the girls sometimes and she might have a glass or two, but then she'll go months without it. And I'm just like, you know, she's always said to me, oh, like if she's come in, like her hen do last year, she came in and she was a wee bit tipsy, but she, oh, I'm so drunk. And I was like, you're really not, Jen. you're absolutely fine. But you know, that's, you know, I grew up with people that, like yourself, that like we drank to get, you know, shit faced. That was a session and that was it. So what actually changes in the brain after a few months sober?
So the big thing for me was that brain chemistry getting back to normal, and what you can't emphasize enough, we didn't really have time to talk about the mechanics of it, but there's a whole world of difference between sleep and alcohol induced unconsciousness. So that stimulation sedation thing that goes on in your brain absolutely destroys your natural sleeping cycles. And like me thinking, well, I'm getting maybe 4 good nights sleep a week, so I'm okay. It doesn't work that way. It takes weeks to get, when you're interrupting a sleep cycle constantly, you get into that, you know, like if you set an alarm for 4 o'clock in the morning for 5 days, on the 6th day, you'll wake up at that time, even if the alarm's not set, because you just get into the habit of it. If you're regularly destroying your natural sleep cycle by taking this drug that just demolishes it, you don't get better in a few days. So, I mean, for me, what not drinking gave me, and I know it sounds a bit kind of, I can't remember the word now, not stereotypical. What's the word?
Oh, not regular.
Oh, don't worry. Anyway,
yeah, I know what you mean.
Hopefully, you can cut this bit out. But it was about becoming the best version of myself.
Yeah,
and by that, it's like it's such a simple thing, but you know, to have not been messing with my brain chemistry, to be sleeping not all the time well, but most of the time decent enough, and much better than when I was drinking. Like I say, I found that what I thought in my late 30s, what I thought was me at my best was 60% of what it could be, and it was just giving it that extra time of everything to just fall into place. And it was as simple as that. It's like what I realised is I'd been living a life that was a half life essentially, not a full life.
Just not really participating in everything, not living to the full expectations. And and do you think, like, is alcohol really helping confidence, or is it just reducing inhibition, if that makes sense?
It makes it worse, and this is my experience of it. If you've got something like, so I'm quite introverted really, and I struggle with social occasions. So when I went out for the evening, I'd feel nervous and self-conscious, and I took alcohol to get over that so I could chat to people and socialise. And that's what I did for like 25 years. And then suddenly alcohol was removed. So it's like, okay, well, I'm not going to enjoy social occasions. But like I said, eventually you do, because no matter how self-conscious or nervous you are, as long as you meet someone and start chatting to them, you start to forget all that self-consciousness, and you just lose yourself in the conversation and start to enjoy yourself.
No, it's interesting because, you know, I think a lot of people think, well, it helps with my confidence, but it's you know, you're kind of compounding it, and it's making it a little bit worse at the end of the day, because then you're using that as a tool to build the confidence. You're
kind of like, you're papering over the cracks rather than actually dealing with the source of it. So for me, the dozen years or so I've stopped drinking, I'm still not great at socializing, but I'm much better than I was in my 30s, because I was never dealing with it properly. I was never learning to socialize sober. I was just papering over the cracks. And I think that's the problem with it. They say, like, bravery isn't the absence of fear, it's moving ahead despite fear. Now, alcohol negates the fear. So
Yeah.
If you're doing something brave under the influence of alcohol, it's not really brave because you're not facing the fear and overcoming it. You're just anaesthetizing it.
Yeah, exactly. You're just putting the blinkers on and going for it like full steam. Yeah.
Yeah.
What role do you think alcohol still plays in society, William? I mean, like, as in, what are your thoughts on alcohol now? You know,
It's still a massive part of everything, and I think it will remain that way for a long time. But I definitely think it's starting to move the same way smoking
yeah,
has gone over the last 50, 60, 70 years or so. It's gone from like a completely acceptable social pastime to sort of people are more and more distancing themselves from it. And I do, it's going to be a different dynamic
yeah,
with alcohol because there's some very big social differences between nicotine addiction and alcohol addiction.
yeah.
But I definitely see it slowly sort of moving away. And in fact, one of the biggest changes is the sort of sober movement, because back a dozen years ago when I quit, it was pretty much AA or nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas now there's a big movement of people who quit drinking, not because they have a problem with it. Whether they have a problem or not with it is irrelevant. They're doing it as a lifestyle choice.
Yeah.
They're quitting because it's a better way of living, which is, I think that's the biggest difference. It's that change in mindset between, do I have a problem? If yes, quit. If no, carry on, but try drink a bit less. To actually, why am I doing this at all? What am I getting out of it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think people's, even in the 6 years or nearly 6 years that I've been sober, like people's attitudes towards it are changing. It used to be like, oh my God, you tell someone that you're not drinking tonight or you've quit drinking, and it's like, oh my God, but people don't really seem to be that bothered anymore. They're like, oh, good for you, but 6 years ago it was like, and I there's still people out there that think, why would you quit drinking? This is your only source of fun. And it's like, well, you're being a little bit ignorant there. But yeah, do you think that there's like more conversations that we need to be having, like putting it towards the government a little bit more and to try and get more, I don't know, warnings on bottles and things like that? I think that's the first and foremost thing that should be happening. Like the cigarette packets, let's inform people.
I think the problem is, I can only speak from my own experience, and I didn't stop smoking because of the warnings on the packets.
True.
And thinking about when I was drinking, would it have made any iota of difference if I was to see a warning on the drink? Probably not. But I do think this kind of stuff, talking about the nitty gritty of it, and if people are listening, thinking about stopping and thinking, actually, that makes sense. I can have a better life not drinking. To me, that's what makes the change.
Yeah.
Not saying to someone, don't do it or do it less. It's giving them a reason that they buy into to want to stop drinking. They want a better life. And, I think that's it. If you can, because where I was, when I quit, I think that one of the reasons I was successful is because I have absolute faith that I was heading to a better life. And that came from personal experience, but also an understanding of all the science and the psychology and how it all fitted together. And actually, it was more than I imagined, because I expected to feel better physically and emotionally. I wasn't expecting to suddenly learn to do holidays and Christmas and social events and enjoy them as well.
Yeah, but you knew, like, there is, because I think a lot of people that end up in AA or wherever, they're thinking, oh my God, how is my life gonna? And they soon learn. But I think by reading books like yourself, your Alcohol Explained, like, people can see, like, actually my life is going to be so vastly improved. Whereas I think, your first instinct is, right, I just need to quit the drinking and then I'll deal with whatever comes at the end of that. And it's like, you don't have to deal with anything. Your life is going to be better, not straight away, but it's gonna get much, much better. If the world became sober for 1 week, William, what do you think people would notice first?
I'm not sure. Probably the amount of home brewing that was going on. Or are we talking about just everyone unilaterally?
Just like, like if there was a magic spell put over the world and every single person became sober, what do you think the people would notice first?
I think we'd probably have too many police on the streets. That would be the first thing, because your Friday, Saturday nights carnage in cities all over the world would be done, wouldn't they? And car accidents would drop, and A&E would be emptier, and everything. Geez, it would have a big impact socially on our whole lives, our economy, everything, I think.
Yeah. I mean, I think, and emotionally, what does that look like for a real person's life? Like, I think, like you've just said it, I think we'd see much more happiness around the world. And I'm not being all woo-woo, like, oh, give up alcohol and everyone's going to be happier. But, like you said, it's a sedative, it's a depressant. And I think a lot of people are clutching onto that thing because they're feeling so miserable. But like you said, it's like, what came first, the chicken or the egg? Are you depressed because of the alcohol? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's the old thing with it as well. So people quite often say, if you do something, say something when you're drunk and you wouldn't say it when you're sober, it's because alcohol lowers your inhibitions and it's what you really think and really feel. But that's complete rubbish. What alcohol does, it has a particularly strong anaesthetizing effect on a part of the brain called the limbic system.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things the limbic system does is regulate our emotions. So when it can't work, our emotions are not regulated. So when you're drinking, you become as kind of emotional unstable as a hungry toddler. So something that when you're sober just wouldn't bother you in the least, because your brain can't regulate your emotions, the mildest thing throws you off into a complete, temper tantrum. And so again, there's so much, hurt and stuff going on for people saying stuff, doing things. But it's not that they're saying what they really want to say and are too inhibited to say it. It's the fact that alcohol changes how our brain works and we're incapable of, like I say, regulating emotions when we're drinking.
It's fascinating because that is the old adage that people say, like, oh, well, the truth comes out when you're drinking. And it's like, it's not. It's rubbish. It's madness.
Yeah.
William, one piece of advice for someone at day one.
So I would say it gets better. It absolutely gets better. And to a degree, for me anyway, it was trusting the system and knowing that it was going to get better. And it absolutely does. Progress is not linear. So don't expect every day to be better than the day before. It's up and down, and you can have a good day and think everything's going fine, and the next day just things all fall to pieces. But it's just having faith that over time, up or down in the short term, it's going to get better and better when you take the big picture.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I love that. One habit that keeps you steady on a day-to-day basis.
I go running every morning, and I think that's the biggest thing for me is exercise, because talking before about how alcohol becomes our go-to sort of like emotional support, our anxiety, our way to cope with stress or an anxiety. I think for me, having exercise helps massively just on how you feel day to day.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, it's one of the best kind of tools for obviously getting yourself healthier, but just for mind, body, and clarity. Like once I got sober, it was a no-brainer to just start exercising, and I love running. How far are you running each morning?
So I just do 3 miles. I was doing longer distances, but I found I was picking up injuries all the time. And I think, touch wood, I've kind of got the sweet spot now of 3 miles each morning, not too long, and then weekend I've started to do some quite long walks as well, so I kind of sort of go out for like 3 or 4 hours walking at the weekend, and that touch wood, as I say, so far it's been pretty good. But it's enough to sort of blow the cobwebs away, wake you up, get the endorphins flowing a bit, and just feel a bit more positive to start the day. And at the other end of the day, doing that in the morning, you're really tired, so you go to fall asleep nice and easy and hopefully get a really good night's sleep. It's a good kind of habit to end up into, I think.
I mean, my physical job. So obviously, when I get home and get to bed, I'm out. My sleep. Since getting sober and doing this, it's unbelievable. There'll be people listening to this going, "Oh, you absolute bugger!" It's like, well, yeah, a little bit of exercise, move your body, and you get some amazing sleep. It's fantastic.
Absolutely.
A podcast, film, or book about recovery or hope, one or all three. And obviously, I'll put your book in the show notes, so something like that.
I'm not sure, I'm thinking of some of the books I've read. I read, I want to say whether it was about hope or not, but they're talking about the opioid crisis. I read Demon Copperhead. So it's like
I haven't read that one.
Fiction book set in, that opioid crisis about this, life going on there. And it was very moving. I don't know about hopeful, but yeah, it's an interesting one. The other one I read years ago was, The Long Weekend. Have you read
Hmm.
that?
I haven't read it. No,
That,
no.
yeah, that there's bits in that almost make me feel sick. It takes me so back to what how I was like that, waking up and just
Yeah,
suddenly you're awake, wide awake, and remembering or not remembering what's going on and how your life's falling to pieces. And it's
yeah,
just, again, it's a horrible feeling, but it's nice to read. It's like waking up. You have one of those dreams where you're drinking or smoking and you wake up and it's such a relief when it's
such,
not, you realise it's not true.
yeah,
That's what I feel like when I read these books now, and I just think, God, that was me. And
yeah.
I chose to do that for 25 years and now I don't have to anymore.
Have you read or watched the film The Outrun by Amy Liptrot? And the film's got
No.
Saoirse Ronan in it. It's giving me shivers now, because there's a scene in that where she comes running in. Her boyfriend sat watching TV. She's coming in from work or uni or whatever, and he's like, "Oh, hi, love," and she's like, "Just give me 2 minutes. 2 minutes. I need to go to the loo." So she runs to the loo, and hidden behind the stem of the sink is a little half bottle of vodka. And I went to the cinema with Jen, and I was like, that's what I was doing, and that was where my
Yeah.
and you see her, she's glugging it straight from the bottle, like, no stopping, and then she's like, and then she can go and have a conversation with her boyfriend, and that was me.
Yeah.
And it's scary. It's like what
That's
you're saying. Yeah.
It's scary, and the worst of it is you end up drinking more and getting more drunk, because instead of just sitting there, because I used to do this as well, instead of just sitting there and slowly drinking throughout the evening, and you might be drinking a lot, fine, but when you're trying to fit it in, like wife's gone to the toilet, so you have an extra big one, you're knocking it back, and because you're worried about how long it will be till you can have your next one, you end up having far too much. So I'm convinced that exacerbates the whole problem. You end up drinking more and getting more drunk because you're trying to get it in quickly while you have an opportunity to.
Yeah, well, I mean, I used to go to the bar, and my friends would be like slow coaches with their drinking. So I'd be like, "Oh, well, I'm just going to go up and get a round of shots." Or if it's my round, I'd go around the other side of the bar and I'd get a few drinks in while I was getting the round, because they weren't drinking the same as I needed. And it was like, I'll just get a couple in. So yeah, you're saying, you're building your tolerance all the time compared to what your peers are doing. It's absolute madness. Yeah. But yeah, check out The Outrun. It's a great book. And the film's just fantastic as well, with Saoirse Ronan. One word that describes your life now, William?
I would say difficult at the moment, and I'll tell you why. Although having stopped drinking, I'm going through a bit of a difficult patch at the moment because I'm right in the middle of a divorce. And I think that's it's kind of good to talk about, really, because it's not all fun and games. So when you stop drinking, things do get better, but it's still life and it still has its ups and downs. And I just, so there's times at the moment that are incredibly difficult. One of the main things that gets me through them is thinking, at least I'm not hungover, because however unhappy I am now, imagine waking up with a stinking hangover and having to get up and go and function at work the whole day.
Yeah,
it's just unbelievable. I just couldn't. I mean, I was going off the rails anyway back in 2014, but if I was still drinking, I think I'd be well and truly gone by this point.
And I think a lot of people use that, and sorry to hear about that, William. I think a lot of people use things like that as maybe not an excuse, but like a reason to drink, and I didn't even need a reason, but I always looked for reasons to drink. We had loads of things going on, but yeah, I'm so thankful that whatever things life throws at me, it's like, I used to worry about, like, oh, if this happens or if this traumatic things happen, would I go back? And at the beginning, I didn't really honestly know, but now I'm like, yeah, there's no way. Why would I want to put myself back in that situation where I wouldn't be able to deal with things and cope with things, as well as I can now that I'm sober.
It's hard enough dealing with stuff sober, let alone throw in a big drinking problem on top of it, which just absolutely doesn't bear thinking about.
No. Not at all. And so what does the future hold? I know you've got obviously that going on as well, but have you got any more books coming, or?
No, that's it at the moment, really. It's taking up quite a lot of headspace, as you can imagine, just personal circumstances. So I'm just
Sure.
at the moment just going to work and getting through the days.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah, no more books lined up at the moment.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just
Well,
plodding on.
I'm
Yeah.
trying to write a memoir. I have been for about 6 years, but I'm really kind of getting
Oh
focused on it
wow.
to start really getting into the nitty gritty of it. I know there's a million out there, but it's more for me than actually getting it published. And I just want to get it down on paper or on computer and just get it out of my head because it's there. And the older I get, I don't want to start forgetting things. I might have to go back and
Yeah.
speak to some friends from the past and go, what actually happened that night? And, just get the different angles. Because from what I'm remembering, might not have actually been exactly what happened that night, because I was
No.
inebriated. But
You've got exactly the right idea because I felt exactly the same about when I wrote Alcohol Explained. It was almost like it wasn't important whether it was published or did well or whatever. But I just felt like I wanted to get it out, and
yeah,
it was hugely helpful for me because I thought I had a fairly good picture of alcohol addiction, etc., etc. But when I came to put it down in writing, I found there were gaps, and I found it extremely helpful and cathartic.
hmm
Whenever people say to me about writing a book, I always say write because you enjoy it, and write something that's gonna do you good, that's gonna help you, and write as if no one's ever going to read it. Don't expect people to read it. Just get down there, write it, and that should be a good, like I say, cathartic, helpful process to you.
yeah,
And if people read it and enjoy it, that's a bonus to put on top.
absolutely. And I mean, I think, when I started it, I'd gone into rehab or detox center on, I think it was the 13th of April, might have been 13th of March 2020. So literally 2 days after that, we went into lockdown in the UK, and I was living in the UK at the
Oh
time.
my.
So it was in there was a jotter, like a pad of paper on my desk in my room for journaling and all that. So I started there and then. And that whole summer, like I got sober for a bit, then I relapsed, and then, there was an arrest and lots of other things that went on that summer. But I did get sober the summer of COVID, which was, that's when a lot of people's drinking kind of ramped up. So it's quite an interesting look at it. So I need to just get back into it and get it done. Like, as you say, it's for me. And that's a good way of thinking about it. Write it for as if no one's possibly ever going to read it. Just put it down and get it done. So, yeah.
I found with Alcohol Explained, I sort of tried to write it and it was just really hard work and I gave up on it. And then it was a few months later I came back to it and I just couldn't stop. I don't know what it was, but something just changed and I loved writing it and I've really enjoyed writing all my books. I just look forward to getting on the tube and being able to write for half an hour, 40 minutes while I'm traveling home and really enjoy it.
Yeah. Well, I've got a couple more episodes to record this week, and then we're off to Madeira next week for a couple of days. So
Nice.
really looking forward to that. We're all just going to get a wee bit of sunshine and chill. I'll take the laptop and I might even do a bit of writing there. So yeah. Is there anything else you want to share with the listeners, William?
No, just thank you for inviting me on. I've really enjoyed it.
Thank you. It's been an absolute pleasure. And as I say, I just love the book, and I know that so many other people get a lot from it. So thank you for writing that. And I've still to read Alcohol Explained too, so that's in my Audible pile.
Okay.
So still to read that one as well. But yeah,
I hope you enjoy it.
Yeah, no, thank you, William.
Thank you.
It's been an absolute pleasure. Take care.
Take care. Bye.
Cheers.
And that's William Porter, guys. I mean, what a brain, what a conversation, what an absolute legend. The thing that keeps coming back to me is what he said about thinking he was at 100% and realising once he got sober that he'd been at 60% his whole adult life. That's not a small thing. That's half a life. And how many people out there right now are living at 60% and calling it normal? The other thing I loved about what he said about confidence, so many of us think alcohol gives us confidence, but what it actually does is paper over the cracks. You're never dealing with the shyness or the anxiety or whatever is underneath. You're just anaesthetizing it for the evening. And when you take it away, you have to actually learn to deal with it, which is harder, but it's real and it sticks. William, I have to say thank you so much for coming on. And also for writing Alcohol Explained. It changed how I think about drinking, and I know it's doing the same for thousands of others. Go and look it up. It's in the link. and in the show notes. And if you haven't read it, just do it, because it will change your life. William, hope things ease up for you soon, mate. You know where we are. As always, guys, listen for the similarities, take care of yourself, stay safe, stay sober, stay supportive. That's it for this season. We will be back very, very soon. I can't stay away. I've already recorded some fantastic episodes already. But please, please, please subscribe so you know when we'll be back. And also to keep help me doing what I'm doing, there's a buy me a coffee link in the description. If you ping over the cost of a coffee, which is much less than the cost of a pint, it'll help me continuing to keep this baby rolling. Cheers, guys. Have an amazing summer, and peace and love to you all. Bye-bye.